This is episode 2 of More Than Me. I'm CJ, and I'm here with Kris Wraight, who is running for City Council in New London. So thank you, of course, for being here.
No, it's an honor. I'm very grateful for y'all inviting me.
Absolutely. But yeah, we could go ahead and get started. And maybe if you just want to start with maybe sort of like what it is that you do right now, or anything you want to share about your background. Kind of like an
Doing
intro.
my work life?
Yeah, if you want to do that. Yeah.
So I'm grateful to everyone watching this. Appreciate your time. I'm running for City Council because I care a lot about New London and New Londoners, even though I'm not from here. But I live here now, and it's like I call it home, and I want to live here till the end of my days. What I do when I'm not campaigning for City Council is I'm interested in seeing how our community and other communities can use restorative justice or transformative justice to address conflict. So see if there's ways that we can bring community together to hold people accountable for harms, but like outside of the police system, outside of the criminal justice system. So a lot of that's work is with teachers, like trying to get teachers to have better relationships with students and get away from zero tolerance. But I'd love all of New London, like I'd love us to be moving in that direction.
For sure. No, that makes sense. And for folks who maybe aren't familiar with like restorative and transformative justice, can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, it's just like it basically says like human beings, we have problems with each other, we have conflict with one another, and like sometimes we harm each other. And that's not to excuse harm, and harm needs to be accountable for. But like, you know, we live in this community together. If I harm you, like I have a responsibility to make it right. Mm-hmm. So restorative justice would say like I gotta admit it. You know, I gotta admit that I did this thing, and then ideally be willing to sit down with you and others in the community I've affected. Because if I've harmed you, I've harmed your family. You know, I've harmed my family by harming someone. So it's like getting the community together to then say like what needs to be done for me to make it right to you.
Right.
And you, the victim, the person harmed, you get to decide what you need. Mm-hmm. Right now, like the current system doesn't really care a lot about what the victim needs. It's the state makes the decision against. Yeah. So that's a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's perfect.
I can get too deep.
Yeah.
If it would like.
No, I know. You're an expert. I know that. No, that was perfect. Absolutely. And you mentioned like you're not from here. When did you move here, and why did you move here?
I moved here in 2005-ish. I moved here because when I was in college, I graduated in 2003 in Massachusetts. When I was in college, I fell in love with my wife Laura, who's from New London. So I moved here in 2005. I always say, and it really does feel true. Like it feels cheesy, but true. Like I moved to New London for love, but I like fell in love with New London.
Right.
And I love, I'm from Southern Oregon. I love my home. I love the West Coast. I miss my family being far away, but New London is so many things in the community I want.
Absolutely.
Like I see beauty here everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And can you talk more about that, like the beauty you found, the things you fell in love with? Like obviously Laura's here, but like what else made you stay and makes you want to continue to stay here?
Well, I grew up in a super homogenous community of like predominantly white people, like predominantly like middle class white people who were like good liberals, you know, and like cared about justice in their own ways, but I really and so I was taught to care about racism at a young age, but I was taught to be like anti-race and not anti-racist. Like I was taught like that colorblind notion that like leads to like a lot of, you know, furthering white ignorance and harm. And so like New London and like living and moving into New London and living around beautiful people of lots of different skin shades, like you actually get to face your racism you've taught. You actually get to like forge bonds and relationships with people who are different from you. So I love the racial diversity, yes. Mm-hmm. I also love I love the small community. I love the size. I love the young people here. Like I had the fortune of working for many years through Safe Futures, teaching like healthy dating relationship programs. And I'm not saying I was learning. So I'm not saying all of you young people like got me at my best. You might have thought like, what is this whack white person doing up talking about relationships? I might not have always done well, but I did really enjoy it. I did really love being with you all, and I did really I cared about you all, your lives being free from like, you know, control in love relationships. So stuff around that.
That's dope.
Yeah, I love New London. I think New London is awesome. There is like tremendous New London pride. Like people love being from New London. Like let's make it what it should be.
Right.
Which is for the people who live here.
Yeah.
You know, people are suffering. Like, let's utilize our tax dollars that we're already giving to the government to support needs of New Londoners now.
Absolutely. No, I love that answer. And I think you talking about relationships. After our conversation the other day with Clayton and Epps, we talked about when did we first meet you, because we were all trying to pinpoint that. And then Epps was like, I think you visited his health class. And I was like, that must be it. And me and Clayton had health together. So we're like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you've definitely been doing the work, like, since you've been here, from like what I can tell.
I've had the fortune for the amount of time I've been here, which is what, going on, 15, 16 years now. Like, I've had a lot of fortune of like getting to work in and around young people in New London.
No,
So
that's awesome.
That's been really lucky.
For sure. And then you talked about kind of like, let's make New London what it should be. What is your vision for New London? Like, more specifically, like, what are the needs we need to meet?
Yeah, I mean, when a third of our city, when like 1 in every 3.5 people in New London is living in poverty, to me that says like they don't have a good job, right? Like they don't have a good paying, they're probably having to work way too many jobs and still not make enough and be away from their family for hours. So for instance, if our families need better jobs, and the city of New London has a lot of city jobs that it gives to outside residents, gives to people who live in Waterford and Groton and East Lyme and wherever. Like, let's stop and give those jobs back to New Londoners. Like, let's keep the money in the city, right? So if that's a need, we can make that need happen.
For sure.
I want tons of youth services. I want a youth center that's a youth center. It's not for the community. It's not for outsiders. It's for young people. I want it to be just for New Londoners. I want a dirt bike park somewhere for New Londoners, for New London like youth and young people to like ride around on. I want free buses for like anyone of all ages to get to ride around, to get to work, to get to the hospital, to see a loved one, to get to wherever you gotta go. Like, the buses run once an hour and they cost money. Like, especially the frequent, like, they need to run once every 15 minutes. Like, let's make them available for people, right? You have to have a car in this town or you're like screwed. I want services for our elders. I don't even know what our elders need, but I know they're being ignored. I know they're being neglected. Like, we give the cops $12 million. We give our young people about a $500,000. And we give our senior citizens about $200,000. Like, do we care about our young people and old people at all in this town? Like, I know that New Londoners care about their youth and care about their elders. But our tax dollars are being misused right now, grossly misused, to just benefit outsiders, bad development, lots of
Right. Nah,
abuse of powers. You know.
Nah, you're absolutely right. And then, so like, I definitely see your vision. What would you do differently than like the current city councilors in order to make some of that come to fruition?
Well, I would never vote to approve a budget that spends money the way it currently spends. I believe all of the city councilors, in the end, voted to approve this current budget. And this current budget continued to increase the police department budget and give crumbs to young people and crumbs to elders, and crumbs to mental health services. 40% of our 911 calls are for mental health services. They're not for law. They're not. A crime has not been. A crime. It's not about crime. It's not about law. It's just mental health services. And yet our Department for Mental Health Services has 1.5 staff, whereas our police department has like 80 staff. Like, come on, we gotta switch things up. So I would never vote for a budget that allowed that shit to continue.
Right.
I would never allow that. Now I'm only one vote. And so like that's where we need more, you gotta have 4 votes in order to really get stuff done. So I am running to win, I can win, but like, we need people to think about like who the alliance other votes are. Like Eddie Long is running for city council under the Green Party too. Like, he's new. Like, we have to think about how do we get the 4 votes.
Yeah, for sure. Right, and so you mentioned the Green Party and Eddie Long. So basically, can you tell us a little bit about what the Green Party's values are? Like, what are y'all bringing to the table, and how does that align with the needs of New London residents?
Yeah, so the Green Party's values, like beyond just New London, but sort of like the larger Green Party, are like all about social justice and like sustainability for the environment. Like if you sort of boil it down, like let's take care of the like planet so we can continue to live, and let's like take care of each other, right, in just ways. So concretely here in New London, like a lot of the leaders around the Green Party care about issues like we don't believe in the war on drugs, right? We believe that like all drugs should be legalized and regulated. Like let's talk about dispensaries, right? And like what's going to happen because we just got legalized. Like how are New Londoners, like who are going to get dispensary licenses? In fact, I was talking to an awesome New London resident who knows a lot about it. Like he should clearly be involved. Patrick, I can't remember his last name. Baker, maybe. So,
Okay.
So anyway, the Green Party cares about everything from decriminalization of drugs to how do we treat, like, how do we have a robust public works staff? Like, how do we make the city more livable for people? Like, what do people need in their everyday? Like, the Green Party, one of the value, not values, but mottos is like, identify a need, take an immediate action to address that need, and then like repeat. It's not like we're talking about like small actionable items for people's lives.
Right.
So if there's areas where I feel like there's areas in New London that don't even have sidewalk, where people have to walk with their kids to like get to a bus stop or get to like their kids' bus pickup, whatever. Like, can we just like change that? Can we make streets safe for people to navigate, even if they don't have a car? So anyway, the Green Party cares about a lot of local things like that. It doesn't want to invest in an over-policed community. It doesn't think it wants to properly fund our education system. So
Right. No.
I don't know if I answered the question
No,
fully. But,
I think that makes sense.
okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the Green Party, I guess this is the most important thing for me to say, is in New London, the Democrats control the leadership. And while I frequently vote Democrat, in fact, for most of my life I've been a Democrat, right? And I will frequently still vote for Democrats. In New London, it's really important to think about voting, in addition to some of the Democrats you like, to voting for other like Green Party members or Republican Party members if you like them, because when it's all one party that's controlling the city council, there's no accountability. Like there's no one to keep them in check. And the mayor is a Democrat, and they're beholden to the mayor. They got to keep the mayor happy, because if those city councilors don't keep the mayor happy, like there's consequences for them. Whereas if you elect me, you elect Eddie Long, we don't owe the mayor anything.
Right.
He has no control over us. The other Democrats, they have no control over us. So I don't have an ounce of fear to speak out against the mayor or city council individual city councilors when there's something that they're doing that I don't agree with, because there won't be any consequences. They don't own me. Whereas the Democratic Party, like, we got to break it up. There needs to be accountability in the room.
For sure. Can you talk about why it is like that's important? Like, what in recent history like shows like why it's so important to not have 7 Democrats on the city council all at once?
Well, I mean, I think the budget was a perfect example, right? I mean, after in 2020 when in 2020 when George Floyd was killed, and there were huge Black Lives Matter protests organized locally, and a huge a mobilization of young people, predominantly black young leaders, saying like things need to change in the city. And we want the police budget to change, and we want 35% of that budget to go, about $4 million, to go to services that impact and will uplift Black, Indigenous people of color's lives. 9,000 people signed a petition. City councilor, the mayor, they said, yes, we'll change things. Just, you gotta wait till January. So we showed up, January. We showed up. We met with councilors, we met with the mayor, we talked to everybody. In the end, they voted to approve a budget that increased the police budget, hardly increased youth services, hardly increased mental health services, didn't increase elder services. I mean, they just stick together in the end. There's like there's nothing, what we can do is we can vote November 2nd. That's like where our power comes in. Like, that is like an important moment for us to say. Like, we've got to hold people accountable. I mean, there's a million other. The police union contract is up for negotiation right now, and we can't get any. The public can't really get any information on it because the mayor and the city council do it all in executive session, and we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And for anyone like who doesn't know, I mean, there's just wild stuff happening in the police department right now.
For sure.
Racism and sexism, and it's a mess. Like, and that's the mayor's fault. He's not holding them accountable.
Absolutely. Do you want to?
Sorry if I went on too long.
No, that's perfect. You're passionate, and that's what we need. Like, we need that. There was a couple things I wanted to ask. The first one is about that police union contract.
Yeah.
How important is that in terms of the city council's ability to create change that they have said they wanted to create, but like as you just said, they didn't do what they said they would do.
Right.
How does the police union contract impact that?
The police union contract, as I understand it, is really critically important because they signed the contract for a set number of years, and for those number of years, a bunch of things are locked in. And so, for instance, right now we pay millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars millions in overtime to police right now because of the way their schedule is in the contract, and it's structured that way so that they can get overtime. So there's things like this that we could change. Oh, right now, this to me is even simpler and really important. There's no evaluations for current police officers. If you're a police officer, you're never evaluated, you're never reviewed, you're never given feedback on how you're doing on your job. I mean, most jobs have evaluations.
Yeah.
Teachers, I think, multiple times a year have to get evaluated, right, by their administrator. So the city council says that they're going to make sure that the union contract includes an evaluation. They said they're going to make sure it includes evaluation, that it's going to change the schedule so they can't just have too much overtime. And the third thing they said they were working on, I forgot, it'll come to me. But it's really important what's in that contract to answer your question.
For sure. No, absolutely. And my other question was going to go, like you said, what we can do is vote, right?
Yeah.
November 2nd, that's coming soon. That's just like 2-3 weeks away.
Yeah.
How critical is this vote here in 2021 with everything that's going on between the federal money for like COVID money, between the police union contract, and then just the city budget in general?
Yeah. I mean, the city budget every year is $100 million. So voting every 2 years when we re-elect the city council, like and board of ed, it's incredibly important because that's $100 million of our dollars on the line. So I would argue it's important every year. And one thing we didn't talk about is the fact that 15,000 New Londoners are registered to vote, but only 4,000 of us turn out. The majority of us aren't turning out, which means a very small, about a quarter, about 25% of voters are controlling the whole city. They're controlling all of our dollars, and the majority of that 25% live down by the beach. So, and that's not to hate on people who live down by the beach, like, but the majority, but we could take back control.
Yeah.
We could take back control of that $100 million. We could take back control of our city department. We could take back control of our police department and our fire department and our public works and our schools. We could take back control of all of it and make it actually work for New Londoners.
Yeah.
So I think it's critically important.
For sure.
And we got to continue not just voting, but taking to the streets like we did before, because I mean, we got to do it all. It's not just the vote.
Yeah.
I know one vote doesn't fix everything. And this election too, and hopefully some of you will hear this and think, I would be interested in running for city council, because in 2 years, like, this is about this election, but it's also about the election in 2 years, because in 2 years we're going to need more of you to run for city council so that there's a bigger, stronger block of us to really take control of the issues. We need more people for board of ed, and we're going to need someone to run for mayor.
Very true.
Like, we need someone to run for mayor in 2 years who cares about New Londoners and is going to put the city residents first.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. And when the mayor's elected, that's for 4 years. Is there a limit on how many times they can be reelected? Do you know?
He's planning on rerunning. There's no term limits, apparently.
Wow. Okay.
So,
and then what about for city councilors? That's every 2 years?
it's every 2 years. You get elected. So you just got to serve for 2 years. You can just try it out for 2 years. It's not a horrible long commitment.
Right.
And you got a couple years to think about it. Right now, all you need to do is just make sure you're registered to vote. I don't know if there's ways to drop links, but
We could probably do that.
But like,
Yeah.
it's easy to register online, or to even just check and see if you're registered. You can do it all online.
Right. I think there's a like vote.org or something like that. You can register. There's a bunch of websites, so we can put some links for sure.
Cool.
And then, I mean, the voter turnout, that's absolutely a problem. Like 4,000 people in a city of 27,000 people. Like that's unfortunate. Like you said, that's not a truly democratic process. Yeah. Our needs aren't being met largely because of that fact. Yeah. But also for people who are interested in like what's going on in the city and are understanding that we can actually like create some changes here by changing the city budget and things like that. How can people remain engaged after the election with whoever is elected to the city council?
Yeah, well, one of the things we're doing right now is we're like getting people to sign up if they're interested, just know more about the campaign. But then we'd had your information to tap you into like the People's Budget movement if you're interested, which isn't just a Green Party thing. Like that was a coalition of a number of organizations and individuals like across New London. But there are plenty of ways to continue to stay involved. Like we need people to push on the outside, certainly not just from the inside where I hope to be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just for folks who may not know, city council meetings are every other week, on Mondays.
There's a big one coming up Monday, actually.
And are they going to be talking about like the allocation of that money?
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now there's $27 million the city's trying to decide where to give. COVID relief money, right? For people who've been impacted most. And they're talking about giving it to firefighters for uniforms and cops for uniforms and cops for surveillance cameras and more police officers. Oh, and $2 million to Ness, who's a sailing company based in Stonington. So we do need to show up. We do need to like be on that call and speak out if you're interested.
Right, for sure. And I know you've touched on the budget, but obviously this money is a little separate from our regular budget. What would you do differently? Like if you were able to right now to allocate that money, what would that look like?
Well, I think if like right now I could allocate it, I think the first chunk is like $13 million. So I'd give like, maybe right off the bat, I'd give, a few million to youth services, a few million to the senior center, maybe a few million to human services. So 2, 4, 6, and then the remaining like 6, 7 million, like I just give it out to families. Like let's come up with let's do the like universal basic income. Let's do a trial program of universal basic income in New London where we give it out over a certain.
So yeah, you were just talking about giving, like if you could, you would be given $6 to $7 million as universal basic income.
I think I don't know a ton about it, but definitely there are communities around the United States that are exploring with universal basic income, which is a way to support those families living, under the poverty line, give them monthly supplemental income for a certain amount of time. You sort of like, interview them before and interview them at the end and sort of track like how their life is impacted by like a 3-year extra chunk of $500 a month, or you could play around with the amount, but other communities are trying it, and I think they're finding really good success that like it helps people get out from under the poverty, like by just being able to have a little extra income to meet some of the needs, just really basic needs. So if New Londoners are struggling and this is money to help out, like let's give it directly to New London. Let's give it. No one knows better what they need, right, than the family themselves.
Absolutely.
So I believe in that.
Absolutely. And like you said, that money is supposed to be used for people who are most impacted by the pandemic.
That's right.
And that would be about a third of our residents living below the poverty line. Absolutely. No, I wish you were there right now to make that decision.
Me too.
So
Me too.
maybe it'll get postponed. We'll see. But basically, I just wanted to open it up too. Like, if there's anything else you feel like you want to talk about that voters should know about you or know about what you plan to do.
I just want New London voters to know that I'm like really open to your ideas and your feedback. Like I'm putting some of my ideas and thoughts out there about what I think would make a lot of residents' lives better. But I want to. If there's feedback you have, I want to know it. If like I screw something up, I want to know it. And I just think city government has a responsibility to take care of its people, and I don't think the current leaders are doing that. And so, yeah, I'm ready to fight for New Londoners' needs.
Absolutely. Big facts. And then just the last question really I have for you today is just who do you do it for?
I do it for all the beautiful New London youth. I do it for all New London families. I mean, I do it for New London elders. I do it for those in New London struggling with like addiction. I do it for everyone, and I do it for my parents to live up to like what they taught me to be. Even in some of the aired ways of teaching that like they're still growing and I'm still growing, but like I do it for me too, right? Like this makes my life better. Like I want a New London that all New Londoners like have what they need.
Right.
So
Absolutely. That makes me want to ask another question because that's such a great point. All right, one more. Because you're so right about that. At least this son I believe too. When we uplift everyone, that makes, because there's some people that are already straight, and they're like, what do I have to gain by us giving money to other people? And of course, there's another train right now. But
yeah.
Why does that make your life better? Why does that make people who live by the beach their life better if we're uplifting other residents that maybe they can't really relate to?
I mean, when anyone in our community is suffering, like that suffering can and does impact us all, right? From like the behaviors of a neighbor who is struggling with addiction, and so then some of the consequences of that behavior on my family, or like it all of it, all suffering impacts. I want New London neighbors to be a tight knit community, which we already are, but that like really takes care of one another. I think New Londoners already take care of each other, but I don't think city government takes care of New Londoners. And I think like we spend a whole lot of time trying to get people to move on from the outside in to make New London better, when like we have everything we need, except the resources, right? Which is our money. Like those taxes are our money, and I think New London could be a community where outsiders look at the city and say like, damn, like that city takes care of its people. Like that's what I want. That's what makes me feel good. Like I want to be taken care of, and I want to help take care of other people. Like I want.
Nah, for sure. That's beautiful. Beautifully said. Well, again, Kris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have my vote. That's a guarantee. And I'm sure many people who watch this are gonna go talk about you, go vote for you. And I would definitely wish you the best of luck, and I truly hope that you are on the city council this year and the next time around, unless you run for mayor. I mean, I know that's in the future, but definitely looking forward to it.
I appreciate it. So grateful that you all brought me on here.
Absolutely.
CJ Devate, thank you.
Absolutely. There it is. More Than Me, episode 2.